Talking about a book called The One Thing. You wanna put it in the camera so people see? Okay. Welcome all of you guys to the podcast of Valentino. Today I'm with my friend Sean. He's from Malta, and we will be talking about the One Thing book. I will be talking about some of the key takeaways from this book, trying to make it short for you to understand and enjoy it.
And the best part is that I haven't read the book, so he has to explain it to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he will tell me what does he think about some of the thing mentions along the book. All right, so let's start. So this book is written by Gary Keller with Jay Papasan, and basically they focus all along the video on one main thing, because this is
Okay.
why the book is called the one thing, right? So all along the video they try to give you the importance of focusing on one thing at a time, right? The importance of focusing on small steps, right? So they try to teach you along the book um, how to become as productive as possible, let's say, right? So, firstly, he says whenever you have a list of things to do, a checklist, right? In order to do a focused checklist, that is what they think is as efficient, like is the most efficient option, is basically creating a checklist, and in this checklist prioritizing tasks,
Talk
right?
to me.
Yeah, prioritizing. So basically, uh, in order to make a checklist more efficient, you just prioritize it. And in order to know what you need to do first, they always say, do the thing that by doing it, everything else will become unnecessary or easier. Okay? So when you need to choose what to prioritize yourself, you need to choose the thing that will make everything around or everything else unnecessary or easier, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so they keep focusing all during the book on the importance of focusing on the one thing, right? The lies that mislead us, right? So some of the lies that are imposed by society, for example, by some type of say, no, some type of say in history, like un dicho, like
Indoctrination.
not indoctrination, like the typical sentences that are always said in history, like for
Common
example,
belief.
your father, yeah, exactly, tells you
Okay.
a sentence and then you hear it everywhere, blah blah blah.
Agreements.
Yeah,
hmm
like the ability to do multiple stuff at the same time. We always listen to, like the fact a lot of people say multitasking is good.
Okay, so this book disagrees with doing more than one thing at the same time.
Exactly. This in this book they talk about how the brain can focus only at one thing at a time, right? So they say multitasking is a lie. Multitasking is actually not efficient, because your brain 100% can only focus at one thing at a time, right? Even though if you are watching TV, something as simple that we all believe we are doing two things at the same time, right? We're watching TV and looking at the phone at the same time. Really, it's not happening, because when you concentrate on watching, for example, Instagram Reels, you stop listening to the feed,
Yeah.
right? You stop listening to everything that is happening in your surroundings. For
hmm
example, if someone comes and talks to you, you forget.
hmm
Like you forget about the reel, right? You change to something else. So this is one of the things they don't believe in. Secondly, something else that they talk about that I thought it was really cool, so let me know what you think, is they talk about willpower, right? The power of your will to make certain decisions, right? Actually, the power of will is really important because it what helps you creating habits, right? So, in order to create an habit, you need to practice or carry out this habit for an average of 66 days, depending on what's the habit, right? So, in order to create an habit, you need this willpower, right? So, what they talk on this book is thinking of the will that we have as a phone battery, right? So, they say that like your will, when you wake up, is fully recharged. So, you need to choose what you put all of your first will on. So,
hmm
then they come back again here to the one thing. So, the one thing that you need to put all your will is on that one thing that makes everything easier or unnecessary, right?
hmm
So then he talks about different ways maybe to recharge this will during your day, maybe by sleeping or eating protein or some sugar, something that satisfies a little bit your brain and and makes you recover in terms of will. But sometimes I think like to what extent is this will actually real, right? Because maybe
Mm.
your level of will is different to mine,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
For willpower, in my opinion, like I think it can be trained. I think you can train your willpower by doing things that you don't like. If
okay,
you do things you don't like if you don't like having a cold shower and you have a cold shower, you're gonna increase your willpower. But then if you start enjoying the cold shower, I think Andrew Huberman says that then you're not gonna be able to train your willpower beyond that point because you don't dislike it. So you have to find something else challenging. So I do think that willpower can be trained. I think that willpower is extremely important. It's like energy, really. I think it's the same thing. So maybe what you do eat and if you do sleep and if you do train does help it. I just find it a bit hard to, um, I guess, wrap your. I mean, you probably would need to track it to be able to see if it's getting weaker or better, and then you have to identify what you did, what your day looked like when you felt you had more energy or you could get more done. Maybe sleep schedule, maybe just the things you did on that day, the tasks you did. Maybe there's more suited to your archetype. For willpower, there are two things which you mentioned which I think are interesting. Number one, it says don't do more than one thing at the same time. I agree with that statement. I think that if you do, and I like to do many things at the same time, but I'll explain. My curiosity is always taking me to do multiple things. But the point is, if you do them at the same time, so you're thinking about both at the same time, you're not doing either of them. But I think what this book is saying, I haven't read it, is saying like you really need to focus on getting one thing done and then moving to the next thing.
exactly,
I don't like to do that. I like
exactly,
I like if I have four things which I'm interested in, I
yeah,
like to do maybe an hour of this, then I get bored, I'll do an hour of that. Then I get bored or I'll remember that this I need to go and I'll do. So maybe that's something I can improve on. But it goes in cycles, There are some times where I
yeah.
don't do that, sometimes where I do that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think actually I agree to a certain point with you. I don't really know till what extent he refers to one thing for 4 hours, let's say, or maybe he refers to, let's say, for example, you need to talk to certain amount of people. I don't know if he refers to the one activity of really just calling a certain amount of people or preparing the scripts, identifying who you're going to call. I don't know how specific this one thing is, but I agree with you that sometimes when I have multiple things to do and I have a certain time, I agree in the fact of just concentrating like for 4 hours on these four things, doing 1 hour. Then when I feel like I want to change,
Mhm.
I change to something else. And I think my efficiency levels are higher when I change after I've completed a series of tasks inside this big task. You know what I mean?
Yes. So I think when you say you don't know till what extent the one thing applies, I think I agree with you. I think we're talking about different things. I think one thing means doing one thing at a time,
Mm.
and then completing one thing is more of an approach of how you work. So maybe there are three different ways to work. You can work with your curiosity. When you get bored of one thing, you move to the next. You can work, like you said, you can work by completing a whole thing. You can say, okay, I'm going to complete this whole thing and then I'm going to go to the next, like completion.
Mm.
Or else you can work with time blocks. Okay, after 50 minutes I
Exactly.
move to the next thing. So they're a bit different. Curiosity or boredom and time blocks are a bit different, but I agree with you. I don't think that's the nature of the one thing. I think that's something else.
Exactly. Actually, it's really interesting that you said the time block because he focuses like a big part of the book talking about the importance of blocking times, right?
Why?
So what he says is blocking amount of time every day. He recommends about 4 hours and trying to have them these 4 hours of time blocked every day at the same time, right?
Okay.
So you need to protect at all cost this time blocked, right? So you can't schedule meetings at this time. You need to let the people around
Okay.
you know that you are in this kind of time blocked in order to reduce the amount of distractions
High leverage activity.
and
Yeah.
being able to concentrate and spend all your energy on this. The same if you are at an office just trying to make it as undistractable as possible. you know so it's really interesting because to an extent it's really important as well the fact of block timing to see how efficient you are, right?
And he says they should be at the same time to create a habit, or does he not care about that?
Would
Like,
you,
should the time block happen from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. every single day, or should you be
he
able?
doesn't specify exactly like literally from 8 to 12, but he says always try to keep it on the same
Okay.
time frame, right, of
Yeah.
the day, which I think it may have a reason, just I think in order to program your brain in a certain way, right? But I'm not really sure if that's the reason.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So another thing that he says that may mislead all of us when we're trying to do our stuff, plan, and everything, which actually I was quite a fan, not a fan, but a believer of this, and is having a balanced life. You know me, sometimes I've told you, like, I want to have a balance, it's important to have a balance, right?
Mhm.
This guy doesn't believe in balance, right? This guy,
What is balance?
he says that in order to have extraordinary results, you can't have a balance, because if you have a balance, you're gonna have average results, right? So he focuses. I don't think he refers to the fact of canceling like social life, party maybe sometimes once in a while, going out and stuff. I think he just refers on dedicating a bigger percentage of your time on the thing that you really want to carry out and be and have extraordinary results. It can be a sport, business, or whatever. I don't think he really refers. I don't know.
I have a belief in this. I believe, first of all, I would like to say my opinion, like, balance is a very subjective word. So you can have a stereotypical balance where you work a 9 to 5 and you spend the evening with your family and you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast with your wife or whatever, like, 40-year-old. But for me, what is balance? Like, you can find balance in the unbalance. You need to unbalance yourself at times to get to the point where you can balance yourself in the future, is another way of looking at it. So I understand that, to achieve extreme things, you do have to put yourself through extreme measures. Otherwise, everyone would
Exactly.
achieve extreme things. So it does make sense that
Exactly.
if you do the same thing as everyone else, how can you expect a different outcome? It doesn't make sense. But I think that at times balance is important because it grounds you. Burnout happens. Burnout is real, and burnout isn't like you don't need to just fully like disappear. I mean, you might, but it could just be a mental thing. Overstimulation is more real. So you need to find ways to, even if you live an unbalanced life, to ground yourself in the things that keep you sane. And to do that might be to seek balance at times or a different form of it. There's one thing I wanted to bring up, which we were talking about before, about getting one thing done. You mentioned the example of the television and the mobile. While you scroll, you
Exactly.
ignoring. I would like to see, in a hypothetical situation where mobile phones don't exist anymore. I see that the world might be going in this direction at some point in time. I don't think it's out of the question that we don't have mobile phones, and so now the things that we do on our mobile phones or on our laptops are more integrated with like reality. So I'm really curious to see, how doing one thing and how not multitasking will apply to that reality where it becomes more integrated. I think that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I think it comes as well maybe to the same basics, as in just staying focused on that same task even though you have multiple things. But still, I think it's harder. Maybe I think it's harder
Maybe
in terms of maybe I'm working on my laptop. I have multiple tabs open. I go from Google Documents to ChatGPT. Then I see something else. Then I move to another tab, check
call
something
someone.
else, and then I get distracted. As if it was maybe on a notebook and a book, I would just stay focused on this
Look,
task,
yeah,
right?
because the thing is, when you have something hard in front of you, it literally blocks out
Exactly. Yeah.
everything else. It literally takes away your focus. You narrow it down. So I think the same thing applies to a more of a hybrid reality, an augmented reality. But I'm curious to see if the same laws still apply. They probably do.
Look, as well, something really interesting about the fact of multitasking, he said researchers estimate that workers are interrupted every 11 minutes, okay? And then spend almost a third of their day recovering from their distractions.
That's a real thing.
So if you think as well about the time that you spent from going from one thing to another, right?
That's
You
the word.
lose one third of the time, right? And of course, depending where you are, the environment will definitely change and affect this time. But
For sure.
an average, of 11 minutes. Every 11 minutes, people is distracted in the offices. This is
You
crazy.
can't get us. You can't focus. You can't get a flow state. You can't get none of that.
It's crazy. I don't know if you've worked at offices, but I've worked at offices, and honestly, I kind of believe it because all the time someone walks by, maybe someone says something to someone right by, right? Like coffee machine sound, like there are many things that keeps distracting you. Even though it's not a huge distraction, you are still kind of aware all the time of your surroundings, right? And I've never thought about this honestly
Okay.
till I saw this.
What about when you're working at home? Do you still think there is some level of distraction?
Yeah, definitely, but less, 100%, because the same distractions I may have here, I have them at an office too, right?
Plus the other
Which
people's.
exactly, which is your phone
Mhm.
maybe, or your lap notifications in your email, laptop, whatever.
Okay, so what's interesting here is how out of the 11, okay, so we break the focus on average after 11 minutes at work in most companies. Now, how much of that is your environment to blame versus yourself? So if you, I'm curious to see how, you know, on average, the difference between working at an office versus working at home, how big of of a difference that makes. I don't know. How much do you think it makes?
I
Who do you
don't.
think is more to blame?
I think it's definitely your fault, let's say, but environment plays a huge role.
But do you think it's like more than 50% your fault or more than 50% the environment's fault? Oh, well, you
I
couldn't
I
really tell.
say
You couldn't tell.
like it's hard to say it with numbers because of course it depends on the situation and everything.
Yeah, you can't.
But I think it's partly your fault, let's say, but not to a full extent because we're made to be aware of our environment by nature.
Hmm.
We need to be aware in order to survive.
Hmm.
If not, we die. So
It's our fault, but not.
even though you know that you're like in a chill environment or whatever, there are no dangers. Still, your brain, I think, is aware of everything happening. Even though when you're still concentrated on something, like sometimes maybe I'm concentrated here, but if someone enters the house, I can't tell, even though I don't listen.
I
Does
think
this happen to you? Like you are with your headphones and everything, you can't hear anything, but you feel it. Like someone is entering, or someone is coming,
yes, it
or
does.
someone is looking at you.
Like it enters in like your whatever it's called area of interest, I guess. But I think that to a certain point, like at work, you kind of you. It depends your job and depends where you are and what you do, but and who you are. But you might seek for that distraction.
Maybe your brain is seeking for this distraction. I can't.
your intention about behind working I'm not saying it's not pure as in, but it could be that you're working and then as soon as that distraction which normally comes, you look for it and you're like, okay, how can I join this thing that's going on because it's taken my interest away from what I'm doing and I was looking for that. And so then it's like, is that your fault or is that your environment's fault or like, I don't know. I mean, it's probably a mix of both. Because I find myself getting distracted when I'm working at times too. It depends on the task you're working on as well. If I'm not interested in the task, or if it's at a different time of day, or if I have distractions from family, or whatnot, or someone comes banging on my door, like fucking AJ or Nikki, my neighbors, they just come and bang on my door sometimes. Super fucking annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that happens, I get frustrated. But if I'm working on a task which I really enjoy or which triggers me to concentrate more, I'd be much more in the zone. Or I'd get distracted much less easy. Like yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So something else that is cool actually. Well, yeah, I'll go to this later, but I want to talk about purpose. Okay, I love this topic because I've seen
Purpose.
many people
Have
in
a
the
nice take.
industry and a lot of people talking about the importance of purpose, right? What
Okay.
do you think about purpose?
I think it's like an onion.
Okay.
I think that the interesting part about purpose is, can it be seeked? First of all, I don't think. I think that you can look for purpose, but you're not gonna. It's like trying to. I think when you try and get something deliberately, you don't get what you want. I think the more attention you put on the destination of something, it's like the same thing. With one eye focus on the destination, you only have one eye left for the journey. So I think that applies to purpose as well. So for me, I've been sure about my purpose for a long time. Now it's like kind of a bit more confusing. And so I think it's like an onion. I think that the self is an onion,
Okay.
and through seeking curiosity and pursuing interests, you peel layers of your onion, you dig deeper inside you, and you figure out who you are. And with every layer you dig deeper into, you kind of unlock that, like, I guess some people will say that they might find purpose on some of those layers, and they will say, okay, this is what I intend to do. But the more layers you keep digging deep into, you might change a bit, at least in earlier stages, which I'm at right now.
Hmm. Yeah. I think purpose is like something really like big, but and small at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like um, it's like an objective, but something much more superior to an objective. It's like an it depends as well what is purpose for me and what is purpose for you. You know, but for me, purpose is something that, like for example, an stage or a point of life which I want to reach, right? Which keeps you motivated to doing everything you need to do in order to reach this level. No, what do you think?
I think that I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think purpose for me is like, why am I here on this planet?
Okay, okay,
It's like, and there are like many facets to it, like,
okay.
so that's why. That's what I think. I think that I used to think that everyone should be here for the same reason. I used to think that everyone is here to contribute to the progression of mankind.
But 100% no.
But it's a very mean thing to tell someone.
What do you mean?
It's not a nice thing to tell someone, and it's a very bad way of looking at it. These
As
kind,
in?
like, looking at these kind of conversations as if there's one objective answer, or your opinion is better than someone
No,
else's.
of course.
Yeah,
There
but
isn't a right
I
answer.
know, but I used to think that if someone says that, if someone is arguing with me that the purpose of us is not to progress, to preserve consciousness, then and that can be just by raising a child. But if that's not in their like objective list, most objective, then it's like
Hmm.
an inferior purpose, but it's not. So
Yeah, I don't think, I don't think people is in the planet Earth with the same purpose. You know, like people, I think a lot of the people die without even knowing which was their purpose in life. To be
that's sad.
honest, which is sad if you think
Sad.
about it. Me, I used to value like the importance of having a purpose in life, or understanding at least which is kind of your purpose. What do you want about life?
You know what I think would happen if you end up dying without a purpose?
Uh,
I think you would end up looking back into your life and trying to identify the most valuable thing you've done, and then you'd call that your purpose.
I don't really know, but
For example, if you had kids, let's say you had kids and you didn't have good relationships with your kids, or you kept pursuing different things, when you're dying and you feel incomplete, you're gonna go back and you're gonna be like, okay, this is the thing I've done, so this must be my purpose. At least I think that would give them
you
some.
know, it's actually funny because most of the people, as far as I'm concerned, like before they die, they tend to think more about regret, more about all of the things that they regret they didn't do.
Yeah,
All of the people they haven't talked with, all of their friends they lost contact, you know, due to life circumstances. It's true that the people dying now didn't have the same opportunities to keep in contact as we do now,
true.
because us nowadays,
Phone.
if technology keeps evolving as it is, we have no excuses to lose contact with friends, which maybe people dying now, they made their friends 60 years ago or 70 years ago, when communicating was much harder in terms of if someone lives to another city and that's it,
Almost
you know,
impossible. Yeah.
almost impossible.
It's true though. You just made me realize something. Like what I just said before about a person dying without a purpose and then looking to see what was the valuable things they've done in their life and calling it their purpose might just be my mindset.
Maybe.
So it's a good thing to have that mindset, I think, rather than look at the regret. But it's probably not a realistic one. So
Yeah, I think
there's so many things, right? You
yeah,
could do both at the same
yeah,
time.
it can be both. Of course, it depends on the way you
Hopefully, it's
think.
both.
I think the proper way to think is the way you think it. To be honest, to identify what was the things you enjoy the most, or you're prouder of.
Yeah,
But I think most of the people tend to fall in the hole of regret,
for sure.
in the like as in thinking, because a lot of the people they die and they don't even do half of the things they would have liked to do,
That's like
you
my
know.
biggest fear.
Yeah. So
It's a big fear. That's one of
yeah,
mine.
and actually, for example, Tai Lopez, the OG, he always says like the importance of having a purpose. Even Andrew Tate, like many people, I've heard in the last months talking about purpose, right? And here he says, our purpose sets our priority, and our priority determines the productivity of our actions.
Our purpose sets our priority, and our priority determines the
The productivity.
productivity of our actions.
So who we are and where we want to go determine what we do and what we accomplish.
I think that's true.
Who we are and where we want to go determine what we do and what we accomplish.
Um, yes, but there are other things.
So he connects then purpose with priority, right?
Yeah,
So he says like plan this. I love this sentence. He says planning is bringing the future into the present, so that you can do something about it now, right?
that's good.
So
That's very good.
it's clear,
Very good.
clear. So he says a purpose without a priority is powerless,
That's true.
right? So when you have a purpose, it enables you to prioritize your actions, to prioritize what you want to do, right? So it helps you make the decision making process, right?
If you have a purpose which is like easy to translate into a priority, some people have purposes which it's hard for them to translate into priorities, and some people struggle to find their purpose. So imagine you can't find your purpose, and then the book is telling you to find the purpose and get a priority. You don't even know what it is that your purpose is. How can you just choose a priority? Then in that case, I think someone will tell you to go to the gym, to start meditating, and to start getting your mindset in shape to enable yourself to be at that position. Um, but I think that purpose has to do with self fulfillment too. I think it's to do with digging deeper inwards as well. So,
What do you mean to self fulfillment?
like you could say that if you did find your purpose, you'd feel self fulfilled by doing it. You'd feel a sense of
Okay, yeah,
fulfillment.
yeah, I agree.
So, if you can't find your purpose, but you can find just one thing which you feel fulfilled doing, then maybe setting that as your priority to get done is a good way to look at it, even though you don't think it's your purpose.
But if you think that is your purpose, you're self
That's easy.
fulfilled, right?
That's easy then. If you think it's your purpose, then yeah, you're lucky. Go on, march on.
And I think this is one of the reasons, which I don't want to get into any big debate, but I think this is one of the main reasons why religions, especially as Islam, tends to spread as it is at this rhythm, because the type of beliefs that you adopt makes you feel in control, makes you feel that you are fulfilling your purpose in life. That's why as well it helps you to live kind of a good life, a happy life. Because what are the five pillars of Islam. Me personally, I dig a lot into the Islam religion. I've researched a lot. So if you follow like the five pillars of Islam, for you, you're fulfilling your purpose in life. So even though the rest of the things are not going as you would like, you are still kind of relaxed, and you have kind of maybe more mental tranquility than someone that doesn't believe in God,
These are very important things to keep society, in my opinion. Like if you're gonna talk about religions and you're religious, then religions. If you're not religious and you call them man-made constructs, whatever you want to call them, whatever you believe in, they're important. Like the fact that you can have a set of beliefs that remove fear from you and you feel united with a community, whether you believe it or not, it's just a beautiful thing, and it helps
100%.
positive.
100%. This I think they are the main reasons why Islam is spreading as faster than any other religion, because of the feeling and the sense of community, of helping each other, and the fear, not the fear, like, yeah, fear only to God, right? To
Yeah.
Allah. So you don't fear anything else, right? Yeah, that's why.
No, but it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
important.
yeah, 100%. Like you get an idea, a clear idea as well of how important purpose might be sometimes when we talk about auto fulfillment, right?
I love and put my faith in the trust of religion. I do. So
That's why. So then we're gonna move to the next P that is productivity, right? So how these three P's, right? But in this case, it's purpose, priority, and productivity.
Pussy, money, pussy power.
Yeah, so okay, so basically they say that the most successful people are the most productive people. So there is a correlation
Definitely.
between productivity and success, right? So,
Actually, if you're an artist,
but
they're still productive, you'd say,
they're
right?
still productive, bro.
But they're not conventionally productive.
But you can't say there is a convention of
Okay.
productiveness.
Elaborate on that.
As in,
For example,
for you, your convention way of thinking of productiveness is for you what it is.
yeah, like get up in the morning and work, right?
Because productive, it can be like one, it can be seen in 1,000 million ways. I think
I understand what you mean.
in all aspects.
So,
like, no matter what you do in your life, you can consider what you are doing is productive.
so if you're an artist and you take 6 months off and then you come up with a brilliant idea and you execute on it,
For him, it might be productive.
and then if his result shows it, then he's productive. Okay.
But maybe if he spends, I think the result actually determines if it
The
was
what?
the result.
The result?
It determines if it was productive or not. What do you think?
I don't think that's.
No,
I don't know if I agree with that.
because if someone spends like 3 years while working on something with no result, nothing.
Okay. But what if he spent 3 years, got a result, but then Elon can do it in 3 months and get the same
No, but
result?
that's something else.
Okay.
Because in here, like if you compare someone maybe to someone else with a larger amount of resources.
Okay. I didn't
and
mean it
stuff.
like that. I meant with his work ethic.
Okay, but yeah, but maybe
I don't know, but I understand. Look. Generally, if you like, by and large, productivity should show results should result in
but I
productivity.
think productivity shouldn't be compared with anyone else.
You mean independently it should be considered?
In the like, you should compare how productive you've been to how productive you were before or other days. Because if you compare your productivity levels, you can compare it with some people and feel like you are a king, and then you can compare it with someone else and feel like a peasant in terms of your productivity levels, right?
Okay, in that case, what I would suggest is to select a few people that you'd like to that you think are good people to select in terms of productivity. Set a bar, as in study them and understand how they work and such, and then assess if you're over the bar or under the bar. If you're under the bar, that means even though you're improving from yesterday, you're not improving fast enough to be comparing with these people. If you want to compare with people, but if you're over the bar, it means you're progressing. You're although you're progressing steadily, and you're gonna reach where you should reach. Then you're doing the right job.
Yeah, I think. Um,
I really believe
Yeah, I
actually.
think when you need to decide what to do sometimes, this is something Ty Lopez says as well. He always says, when you wanna replicate someone or try to learn something, because of course everything you need to learn it from someone else, or everything
Yeah.
you need to learn it from someone else. He always says, go to the source. Go to the 10 best people at something and find how they do it.
I agree.
You wanna be the next Elon Musk, you are not gonna reach to be that level if you follow what average people in terms of success used to do when they were your age. What did Elon Musk do when he was our age? He used to read 2 books a day. So if you want to become the next Elon Musk, you need to read 2 books a day, and try to implement all of this. So if you want to compare maybe in terms of productivity, to set the level you want to reach, see who reach this level
Exactly.
and replicate their habits.
Exactly. And study them to understand
Exactly.
how they measure, how they move, measure them, and then assess your own productivity in correlation to what they've done and how they worked. It's a hard thing to do, but if you really want to assess your productivity, do that. And if you're below the bar, then you need to work harder. You're not going to reach it. What you said about study the best 10 people, I agree. And I also have a bit of a different take on it. I think that if you can study the people that can explain it at the most fundamental level, then you're doing the right thing. If you're studying someone that can't explain what he's saying at the most fundamental level, then you're not getting the most foundational, you're getting a bit of an abstraction from the foundation. Because the higher up in terms of foundation and like abstraction, or foundation and like, I don't know, complexity, the higher up you get, the less things it applies to. The lower down, the more avenues you can apply that same concept to. And if someone can explain it at this level, learn from him, because that means he really understands it. Someone can know it at this level, and he'll teach it to you at this level, but one, you might not grasp it, and two, it might not apply to as many things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good point to make about that.
So here, when it comes to talk about productivity, he talks about the importance of block your time off, right? So he says, well, something else that he says is that resting, of course, is as important as working. So if you want to like have a good rate of work, you must rest as well. And he says that when you're working on something, you need to concentrate all of your thoughts upon the thing you're working at that moment, right?
Yeah.
So you need to put your full focus on that one thing. Again, he always keeps coming to the one thing, the importance of one thing. And actually, I never thought about it, but now each time I'm doing something, I'm saying this is the one thing. Or whenever I'm doing checklist, something that works for me is journaling. I started journaling.
That's good.
And like writing like the night before, or when I wake up, the things that I want to do during the day. So after, at the end of the day, I see what I did, what did I do, or what extra things I did, so I keep track.
So you journal in the evening or the morning?
Depends on the day.
Okay. But once?
Yeah, but once.
Okay.
Yeah, so I leave track of the things that I'm doing, and in addition, when I'm doing my checklist, I do like the focus checklist, which is by prioritizing, right? So first I do the one thing that makes everything easier or unnecessary, and then I go to the next things, right?
Yes. And there's like approach to how to dissect your to-do list. There are many different ways you can like. There are many different things you can apply to like how to dissect your to-do list, like the Eisenhower matrix.
You wanna explain a little bit about this? Or?
To be honest, I never really use it, but it's basically what's urgent and important, urgent but not important but urgent, and just not important and not urgent. And so you basically put them in a box. I don't really use this. I've never really used this, to be honest. But you put them in a box, and then when you're breaking down your to-do list, some are going to fit into the urgent and important, and others are going to scatter accordingly.